Once again, we have another fantastic interview with the director of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Naoki Hamaguchi. Shoutouts to the Night Sky Prince for bringing this to our attention in his newest video. Feel free to check him out if you guys haven't yet. This man is almost at 100,000 subscribers. He is 7K away. I want to see this dude with a check mark and a plaque because he definitely deserves it, and I appreciate him a lot. No, I am not joking. This interview is probably the best interview I have seen yet for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and there's a lot of exciting things to talk about in it, and I cannot wait to discuss it with you all. So you're going to want to hit that subscribe button and notification bell to help raise that 11% even higher. And now with that being said, let's get into the video. By the way, shout outs to Susie Young and Naoki Hamaguchi. They actually had a bunch of Twitter interactions because he was on a panel with her recently for New York Comic Con. She basically said meeting Hamaguchi was a highlight of NYCC. He's not only a hardworking genius, but also humble, kind, and cool. What a fun guy. I asked him many questions like who he'd really pick, Yuffie or Vincent. Thank you for your time with us. It was an honor. He actually responded, Susie, like Yuffie, gives energy to those around her. It was really a fun time. Should I choose Yuffie or Susie? Of course it's Susie. She's so cute and fun. I read this and my first thought was like, Yuffie gives energy to those around her. Will she be having an ATB feeding move? Like maybe like a haste all or something? Okay. That just... yeah, we'll move on to that. I just thought that was really interesting. Feel free to follow him on Twitter. It looks like he just started using his account. He's had it since November 2012, but popping off now. But shout out to RPG Fan. This interview was done by Scott Clay. They were able to play the FF7 Rebirth demo and also got to interview Naoki Hamaguchi at the end of it. And they have some really awesome questions and some great interactions with him, so strap in. You guys are going to really enjoy this. Our first question is, what character, new or returning, was the hardest to get into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's combat system compared to the original game? Hamaguchi says, pretty much all the monsters and bosses are carefully crafted. We put a lot of effort into them. I would say the Materia Garden in the demo that you got to play, while it does seem kind of similar to the Guard Scorpion, they're very different, so we made sure that the gameplay experience for defeating these enemies felt different but very rewarding for an early boss fight. Hamaguchi also says, regarding fitting the characters into Rebirth, we seriously considered each one of their roles and wanted to keep that balance within the game. And we also consider the overall image the fans of the series may have towards the characters, so there are appropriate expectations for these. These are the things that we really took into consideration. For example, with Red 13, he's kind of the character that has to use a lot of close range attacks, but we also want to differentiate that from another character like Cloud who can do the same thing. So Red 13 will have more of a timing-based attack based on his ability to guard. This leads to his revenge mode ability that's specific to him and makes him super unique. As for BltzZ, we can't really go into a lot of details at this point, but we did see in the trailers him riding into battle on the Fat Moogle, which will come into play in battle. Whether he is riding the Moogle or not will make a difference in his playstyle during battle. His dice element will also be part of his attacks, so in this way we kind of kept the elements of the characters that the fans love while making them balance with actions in battles. It's something we took great care in doing. Now, I'm not worried about them doing this at all. Like they proved to me they were able to make every single character in Final Fantasy VII Remake feel unique and hella fun to play as, including Barret. And a lot of people might just think, Barret's gameplay seems kind of boring because you're just holding down a button the entire time and shooting. Yes, he is your main range or flying enemy specialist until Yuffie came into play, of course. But now things are going to be completely different and we'll be able to approach battle in a significantly different way. And I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how Red 13, BltzZ, Yuffie, of course, will all play going into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And hopefully, with Cid and Vincent possibly being and most likely being assist characters, we get to get a sneak peek and look at their kit. Similar to what we did with Red 13 in Remake. We did see a lot of those moves that he did in the background of the battles come back into Rebirth, which is great. Really looking forward to this. And it's really cool that he drew parallels to the Materia Guardian, which is the Materia Keeper in the original game, to the Guard Scorpion, with them both being, yes, the intro of the game like enemies. Obviously, the Calm flashback is going to be very early into this game. I wonder if it's going to be starting initially from that cutscene, or will we get a intro, like a prequel of some sorts from Cloud to elaborate on what's been going on. After they get to Calm and they're talking about it in the inn. There's a lot of people referencing the original Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer, the teaser with Cloud and Sephiroth walking and pointing out that Cloud does have the single pauldron on, so this may not be the Nibelheim flashback showing, since the Nibelheim flashback has showed Cloud with the double pauldrons, which I do agree and totally can see that statement. But what I was thinking is maybe that actually is a character model error, because that is very early gameplay that they were showing us, and they're reusing assets from Remake into Rebirth. And if you look at the graphics between those two demos, like the initial teaser versus now, it does look drastically different in terms of quality. It's very possible that that's a very early character model and placeholder for Cloud. It is a really cool theory. I can't wait to see how that pans out, because a lot of people think that maybe that isn't the Nibelheim flashback, and instead is a later portion of the game where we return and we get to see a different perspective. RPG Fan also says, approximately how many minigames are playable in the Gold Saucer? Do you have a favorite one, or one that you're excited for players to finally get their hands on? Previously, he did talk about Queen's Blood, but looking forward to seeing what he says here. For minigames, save a few of them, pretty much all of the original games are going to be recreated for Rebirth. For example, with the Moghouse minigame that used to be in the Gold Saucer, this is now moved to the world map, and we can experience the Moghouse without having to be in the Gold Saucer. As for my favorite, and one that I'm really excited for players to experience, I would say the Chocobo races. Okay, now he's flip-flopping. Now you're flip-flopping, my guy. Which will tie into the main story as well. Of course, we do know that the Corel prison, when we get to there, we do have to participate in a Chocobo race in order to leave. So that's obviously one thing to take note of, but I wonder how much more will Chocobo races play into it. I could totally see that being a whole thing in itself. Like all the side content in the game, the Chocobo races are really well developed, and it's a mini game I can easily see the fans getting into because of all the aspects to it. To add to that, the fans of the original games, or people who have played through the original, have this image that the Gold Saucer was the place for mini games and the hub for those activities. This time around, there will be mini games within the Gold Saucer, and some of it will be scattered around the world, and they can be uncovered by exploring certain locations or talking to certain characters. For example, the card game is played by characters worldwide. By continuing the journey and progressing through the story, you will unlock new minigames and new opponents all across the world. I think players will come out of it with the feeling that the entire world of Rebirth offers so much in terms of activities to enjoy. That is actually refreshing to hear, that Final Fantasy is going back to their roots by embracing the minigames and overall making the open worlds, or the world of their game that it's based in, feel lived in and true, and that it's constantly unlocking new things. Even areas that you've already been to, you'll end up coming back to, because maybe you'll unlock harder difficulty, let's say Queen's Blood card game enemies that you can go back to in the original first town. Maybe you duel the intro easier characters, and then eventually you can come back and take on like the mayor or somebody that's like the head of the town, right, for an ultimate card. I think that would be really cool, especially if they don't, not necessarily just for the card game, but for other mini games too, and giving you a reason to just travel and explore. The fact that certain mini games and certain characters have to be talked to in order to unlock said mini games, I kind of like that a lot, to encourage a little bit more of exploration. I have yet to find a single thing that they have said in any of these interviews since Rebirth has been revealed to give me cause for alarm or worry me in any way. They've actually completely exceeded my expectations, because I kept them pretty low, thinking that we weren't going to get an open world and we weren't going to be able to travel much in it. And they completely elevated that shit to times 20, like beyond my expectations, guys. What do you guys think about that? I want to hear from you in the comments below. Here's where things get really spicy, okay? In the trailers, we have seen the synergy team attacks. Will everybody have a team attack with every character, like in Chrono Trigger? Or will it be limited to a specific grouping of characters? Hamaguchi says, thank you for this great question. To answer it simply, all characters will have synergy attacks with every character pairing. Sort of the reason why we decided to do it this way was to give players that freedom and fun of choosing through trial and error their favorite pairings, or trying unique pairings that they hadn't tried before. If we were to have it so that only specific characters are able to synergy attack, that would go against this idea of freedom and enjoyment for the player. We really wanted to keep that idea of freedom for the players, despite knowing that a lot of hard work and graphic resources went into making it this way. That is crazy. So far from the gameplay, we can see stuff like this, right? If you hold R1 to block and guard, it'll bring up your synergy skills as whatever character it is that you're playing as. For this example, they're controlling Red 13, right? So let's go right here. So they went okay, that's synergy skills. They went into synergy abilities, right? And synergy abilities are the ones that hit a little bit harder, but they require these synergy charges that you have to have, like, for example, for this Savage Assault attack, you need at least 2 with Red and 2 with Cloud. Cloud has 2, but Red only has 1. Same goes for the one with Aerith and Red. And you get bonuses off of him. Like this one right here increases your limit break levels. And some of them other ones will increase your MP to infinite. And then now we can see, while controlling Cloud, if you do hold the R1 button, which we were talking about before, which is guard, it also brings up your synergy skills. you have two abilities here, one for Cloud and Red and one for Cloud and Aerith, and these don't cost any resources at all. If anything, when you land them, they increase your ATB bar, and then there's nothing really said about the charges, if they increase the charges or not, but I would imagine every hit in the game does. But when you're holding down R1, you get these synergy skills, which are different and slightly weaker from synergy abilities. There's two different things. And so far from this menu with this pairing, we could see that there's space for maybe two more, right? Maybe two more could fit into this window. And dude, it gets even crazier than this, because he actually says something after that that just completely blows my friggin' mind. Talking about freedom for the players, they're all about it. And then Hamaguchi doubles back and actually gives them more, gives them even more than what they asked for. And I just love this guy. I love this guy's energy. He cares about the technical side of things, and he wants us to know about these things that, hey, if you ask the questions, if you ask the right questions, he's answering it. On top of this, each character is going to have their own skill tree in which one could develop and gain new synergy actions and abilities for their favorite characters. For players that really like Cloud and Aerith, they can focus entirely on them or any pairings. We just wanted to give players choice and freedom to pick whatever they'd like best or what they feel is the most suitable for defeating certain bosses or enemies. I think that could be a really fun experience. So you're telling me that entirely dependent on the skill tree, as we continue to improve and expand on our characters, we can unlock even more synergy abilities between pairings. So say, for example, Cloud and Aerith have 3 or 4 synergy abilities, not synergy skills, synergy abilities between the two of them. Oh, actually, looking back on it now, synergy abilities don't require it to be slotted in for a triangle, circle, or square attack. It's actually a bar that you can choose from, which makes this even more crazier because we don't know how many of these will be available per combinations of characters, right? And each pairing will have their own unique, specific ability, right? And skills too. So let's say Cloud and Aerith get about 4, and that's just Cloud and Aerith, they get 4 right there. Think about the combinations and possibilities there will be if you take into account every single pairing, every single character, and put them together, right? There's gonna be 7 playable characters in this. New Game Plus is gonna be stupid. I love it. Okay, actually, synergy skills are the ones that are locked to buttons. So it looks like synergy skills, you'll be able to equip about 4 at a time. Spellblade looks like you have to hold it down. You have to hold down triangle. It'd be kind of cool if you could differentiate between the two. One that you have to hold down and one that you just have to tap. But it looks like square for Howling Smash, triangle for Spellblade. And if you check right here, I mean, there's 2 other spots for circle and X, right? Dude, that is crazy. Hamaguchi-san, thank you. Thank you so much for all that you and the entire team is doing. The fact that they're taking player choice and freedom into high account, ridiculous, guys. Ridiculous. My brain is already working on all these combinations and stuff, and I really hope I get to play the game soon so I'll be able to really give you guys an insight to what these things are going to be functioning and playing like. In Remake, we saw the use of summons like Leviathan and Bahamut, who were not available at the point in the original game. So far, we have seen Alexander in trailers, a summon who, as far as we know, is from part of the from the original that would not be explorable yet in Rebirth. So my question is, are we going to expect to see more summons from further in the story in Rebirth? And which summon is your favorite so far? Hamaguchi says, great question for this as well. I can't reveal exactly which summons are going to be in Rebirth so far. I would like to say that the summons are material from the live stream in the original FF7, but outside of that, they didn't really go into much of their background or how they came into existence. So for Rebirth, we will be exploring a little bit more into that. For example, there are areas that will be tied into the summons, like an area where a specific summon was once revered or once existed. With Chadley, the player will be exploring some of those aspects and will be shedding a bit more light on that. Dude, it's like, from the top of my head already, I know that Leviathan is going to be a big thing for Wutai. Wutai is not going to be in Rebirth, but now thinking about the other possibilities of where we could see these summons come into play, the backstory of the area of where they're from and how they come into play for that. That is, I was not expecting FF7 to do that, because if you think about it, the summons, for the most part of the entire game, are just completely irrelevant story-wise. They don't ever reference any of them or talk about them by name. They just, oh, here, by the way, here's a Shiva reward right here. Thank you for CPRing me. And now we're gonna get little lore bits, it seems, of what areas they are from, how they came to be, and learning a little bit more about them in that sense. As a follow-up to the summons question, are the summons going to interact differently this time around than in Remake? In Remake, you just summon them and they fight alongside you. But we saw in Final Fantasy 16 how amazing and spectacular the summons can actually really get. Do you have any plans that maybe change that system, or is it going to be the same of what we saw in Remake? Me personally, I always had this idea that in Remake, because the summon materia is synthetic and manufactured by Chadley and Shinra in-house and not really found out in the wild where they're more potent or more likely to be potent, that I thought that is why they seem a little bit weaker in Remake. And then in Rebirth, when we get into the open world area, they're significantly stronger and bigger. And I still wonder if they're going to let them fight side by side with you and you give them like abilities to enact and do, or are we going to get cutscenes where they just jump in and do what they need to do and then leave, rather than waiting till they leave to do the summon animations? Hamaguchi says, for Rebirth, there isn't something that is incorporating summons into the main story per se, but with Remake, you may recall that the materia itself did not exactly level up. This time, however, there is a growth element that is kind of different from AP. By playing minigames or progressing through certain content in the story, the summon materia's abilities will grow that way. In that way, there is sort of a growth factor tied to the side content of the game. It's not AP, you don't directly level them up that way, but you gotta do side content in order to expand on them. And he also said minigames, which is interesting, but from what I can already gather, we recall in the gameplay presentation, when you're in the grass fields and you unlock towers and you do specific challenges for Chadley, you're rewarded with specific currency. You could use this currency to buy new materia from Chadley, and it's locked off for certain areas. Maybe we'll be able to use that currency or another form of currency that we unlock from side content to enhance and power up the summon materias. That's an idea, I guess. Hamaguchi then says, so I have a question for you. You know that in... What? You have a question for him? You know that in Final Fantasy VII, there are those weapon creatures? If we were to introduce them, like summons, as another kind of entity-like creature, do you think that would be too much, or would you enjoy it? I think that would be very cool. Giant kaiju battles are awesome. Laughs from the room. What? Yo, Hamaguchi. Okay, shout out to RPG Fan, because their response to this very well might get this as a thing in part 3, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure this is an idea that they've already been playing with, and he's just gauging like fan reception at this point. But what? Weapons are going to be obviously like large-scale battles, which is a given, but introducing them like summons as a kind of entity-like creature, do you think that would be too much? Like, what I'm thinking, we beat the weapon and then we capture them and we can use them as a summon? Or will we be controlling and using summons to fight the weapons? What the hell is going to be happening? I have no idea. Actually, I enjoyed that a lot in Final Fantasy 16. It was a lot of fun to do stuff like that, but who knows, whenever we get to fight the weapons, you know, they're really big. Maybe we need big summons as well. We're on the same page. Hamaguchi says we'll take that into consideration. So final question, and maybe the most important. I'm a big fan of dressing characters up in games, and I would like to know if there are cosmetics this time around. Maybe put Barrett into a sailor suit and keep him in it for the rest of the game, because I know he loves that suit in the original game. He really does. He does love that suit. Hamaguchi says, this is a great question too. Thank you. Throughout Rebirth, there are going to be occasions with optional or mandatory clothing changes. These align with the circumstance or the story. As far as can they wear them constantly, we were careful to consider some of the more serious moments where it may be appropriate to not wear the costume to keep the scene as impactful, being considerate so that the players can have the best experience. So I do agree with Night Sky Prince here, and this is what I was thinking, that maybe they should make it so that on New Game Plus, you can wear costumes freely because you've already played through the story. You're good. The scenes being impactful or whatever is not necessarily a big deal, but they really do care about it a lot, and I don't think that will be the case, unfortunately. Hopefully that's a patch that they can do, a New Game Plus patch. If a lot of fans really want them to do it, hopefully they do it. But at least we know on PC, which will be releasing 3 months after Rebirth comes out, we'll have it so that we can actually play with mods. And, you know, with the way the modding works in Remake right now on PC, we're able to put all kinds of crazy costumes on characters like the Ronald McDonald, like Sephiroth, and other NSFW stuff that people like. Thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I cannot wait to play it. Hamaguchi says thank you as well. Shout outs to Scott Clay. What a fantastic bunch of questions. And shout outs to Hamaguchi for being such a really like well down to earth dude and fully for the community, and pretty much as big of a fan and nerd as all of us. He really does love this game, love these characters in this world, and he wants to represent it in the best way possible. And taking into account player expression, freedom, and direction is mind-blowing. I really do appreciate that. That is so refreshing. And one of the best ways I think that developers can take their games. All of this stuff that they talked about is so fantastic, man. The New Game Plus skin thing, I think, would be a really cool idea. Like, yeah, on the first playthrough, you wouldn't want to have Barrett wearing the sailor suit during like the Dying flashback, right? But if it was in New Game Plus, that would be a different thing. But I guess they don't want to see those videos being made on the internet. Of course, you know, meme culture will tackle that first. The element behind weapons and summons. I love that Hamaguchi was dialed into this interview and just was throwing questions back at him. Like, hey, what do you think about this? If we wanted to do this, how would that make you feel? And the fact that summons are going to get more of an explanation and backstory too, that was something that wasn't really present at all in FF7 and is more of a thing that is explored in other games like Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy VI. And the thing that blows my mind the most, just the possibilities of how many combinations actually there are in this game and what the skill tree will be allowing us to do when it comes to synergy abilities and synergy skills. We're gonna have a ridiculous amount of combinations of attacks, guys. Now remember, Cloud and Aerith, between Cloud and Aerith, whether you're controlling Aerith, whether you're controlling Cloud, will have the same abilities, whatever it is you have unlocked, but Cloud and Tifa will have different abilities. Cloud and Red will have different abilities. Cloud and Barrett, Yuffie, all of that is going to be drastically different. Kate Sith, you know, like, oh my god. I totally understand why they decided to make Vincent and Sid a later release thing, because that's going to be awesome to have all of this stuff enhanced a little bit more up to level 20 and being able to add in those two characters, more synergy abilities for them and the other characters on top of that. That is a lot of work to actually do and is a great thing to advertise and have a lot of people hyped for in the following release. But man, everything that they're talking about right now, undisputed greatness. It feels good to be back home and able to talk about this stuff. Again, shout out to Night Sky Prince for bringing this to our attention, and shout out to RPG Fan for this wonderful interview. Really well done stuff, man. I'm blown away. I'm blown away, and I cannot wait to finally get my hands on this game and be able to play it with you all and enjoy it in that way. Comment below, what do you all think about this? What was your favorite question? And what other things are you hoping that they answer soon? Obviously not spoiler stuff, but gameplay stuff, right? Unless you consider some gameplay stuff spoilers, then by all means, I fully respect that. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed and subscribe if you are new. More Final Fantasy videos are on the way and you don't want to miss them. My name is BltzZ, and thanks for watching.